What's going on, everybody? Today I want to talk about the age-old question, and something that I get a lot in my comment section is Diablo Immortal actually dying? So I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the analytics that I would use to kind of address this, as well as talk about some of the topics and reasons why you may see some sort of player base drop in whatever server you're going for, as well as the potential server transfers coming soon, according to Pez Radar. So first off, I want to talk about Diablo Immortal and the current state. Right now, when we're talking about this game, we're really reaching the end game. And not just like the end game where, oh, we're farming open world, we're farming dungeons, and that's like, we're part of the end game players. We're really reaching like the absolute end game, and that is Hell 5. Hell 5 is the ultimate end game. We're going to have access to Hell 5 dungeons. We're going to have access to Hell 5 gear stats, and that comes about at 240 Paragon. After we reach Hell 5, there really isn't anything like a big jump to look forward to. Every day it's going to increase the server Paragon by 2, and eventually we're going to reach 600. During that time, we're just going to increase our gear, get more combat rating, do more challenge rifts, get more combat rating, do Heliquary, get more combat rating, do Hell 5, get more combat. Like, it's the same cycle, right? And then maybe you're going to do some dungeons to get some more combat rating and set items there. But as soon as you farm your set items, for example, from Hell 4, generally speaking, combat rating does not matter. And the reason why I say this is because, one, it has a soft cap, but even without the soft cap, in terms of damage in PvE, really you start to one-shot things at some point. And so it really won't matter crazy amount. Even free to play, you start to one-shot the common monsters. Granted, the yellows and oranges take a little bit of time, but because the soft cap for combat rating is around that 22% increased damage and 18% decreased damage, well, we're going to be farming Hell 5 to get more combat rating, which won't do anything for us in PvE content besides push challenges further and maybe do more Heliquary bosses. But guess what? What do Heliquary bosses even do for us? They give us more combat rating. And challenges, what do they do for us? They give us more combat rating by upgrading our gear and a small amount of stat boosts. And so if that's the case, well, what is all that being used for? And the only purpose this is being used for is to push in of itself, right? You get more combat rating to do more of the same type of activity to get more combat rating, which, is particularly enjoyable for some people and it's not for others, right? And then in PvP, you can get some minor value there, but it really depends on the scenario. And I'm not going to go and dive into that today. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the whole content loop is the exact same content loop every single time. And then add to that, we already farmed our set items for the most part. If I go ahead and check out my stash, right now I have a 6-piece Grace set equipped. I'm just running around with it just for fun. I am missing a couple of set pieces for a few of the other sets, but for the most part, I've basically farmed all I need to farm in terms of set items. And again, the only thing I need to improve is the actual attributes and the combat rating associated with it, and to get a little bit of extra stats. But even with like 133 intelligence, you can see here I'm getting 39 damage. So if I were to double this stat, for example, I would get 40 extra damage. And if I were to apply that to every single piece of gear, which I essentially have 12, then I would get 12 times 40, which would give me 480 damage approximately, which in the grand scheme of things isn't a crazy amount. So even if I were to double every single stat I have here, I would only gain roughly maybe a 5% to 7% increase in stats, and that's doubling it, right? Which is a hard thing to do. So that's the current content loop, just to explain what that content loop looks like and where that's coming from. And then as such, most people don't want to do that. And so what you're seeing here is because they've reached Hell 4, because they've reached the combat rating for Hell 5 maybe, they are just leaving the game. They're like, oh, I see the writing on the wall. They're going to go ahead and do the same content loop over and over and over again. And it ends up being a little boring for them, which is, understandable. Now, one thing I want to look at here, and this is something that I use, just a couple of resources that I use. This isn't a crazy deep dive into analytics, but I wanted to showcase this. I went ahead and pulled up Diablo 3, Diablo Immortal, and Tower of Fantasy, just another gacha MMORPG that has been released recently. And you can see here, this is the past 90 days, or past 12 months rather. And you can see Diablo Immortal on June 2nd, when it was released, was about right here. And then it peaked up a little bit, and it has been relatively following down below, and it's kind of stabilized a little bit. It's still a little bit on the downtrend here. And I will note that this peak is probably artificially inflated due to streamers like Asmongold and Quinn69 driving a lot of publicity for the game. And then you had a bunch of people out there like Yang Yi or just random people talking about Diablo Immortal's pay-to-win system. And the only reason they're making that is because it was a Diablo game and it's Blizzard, it's a big IP, and so they made a big deal about it for the views, which is, completely fine. But the whole reason for that is it's inflated this number, right? Normally this wouldn't look like this huge sharp drop off, regardless, because it would have more like maybe starting right here, and then it might have curved a little bit less sharp. So the peak wasn't quite as high as you would have thought, because those weren't people who were actually going to play the game. They were there to complain about it. I didn't want to mention that, but you can see here it's kind of been on the downtrend, and Diablo 3, you could see, has kind of been right at the same pace for Diablo Immortal about the last couple of months. And then with the addition of Season 27, that started, I think, like a week ago or so, you have basically a gigantic shoot up of Diablo 3. Tower of Fantasy was released a couple of weeks ago as well. And you can see here they're taking a sharp drop off, as any gacha game would do, or any game in general would do. And you'll see that they're probably going to stabilize somewhere around Diablo Immortal as well. Now, if we just go ahead and shoot past the past 5 years, you'll see here that what's interesting about this is every single time Diablo Immortal has been mentioned, Diablo 3 has gotten a gigantic shoot up of players, or search traffic rather, presuming that they are actually going to be players. And that's probably because people are excited about Diablo and they are missing Diablo 3 and they want additional content. You can see here with the Diablo Immortal kind of release, maybe this was just a good season for Diablo 3, but they've kind of shot up right here. And then, of course, over here, you can see with Season 27, they've actually reached like an all-time high peak for about since 2020. So in the last 2 years, this is an all-time peak for Diablo 3 compared to the last 2020 season. And it looks like to be trending even further upwards. So who knows if it might reach their all-time peak in the last 5 years, which is pretty crazy to think about. Granted, this is just, some random search traffic. Another thing I wanted to check out here is Sensor Tower. This is just going to give you the app rating for free games. You can see on the release of Diablo Immortal, it ranked 1 for free games. Everyone was downloading it. And since then, it has just plummeted. And then really fell all the way down. You can see at its lowest, which was about a week ago, it was ranked 223 in free games. Keep in mind that we're talking about, there's games like Raid Shadow Legends in the top 10, Summoner's War, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. We have Tower of Fantasy, I believe. All these games are above Diablo Immortal. And some of these games are years old. Like if you take Summoner's War was above this game. Maybe we can add it here, if I just go ahead and look for it. Let's just check Summoner's War here. Let's see. Oh, well, looks like I kind of bugged it out here. But basically here, we can see that there's a lot of games above Diablo Immortal because they've kind of fell off. Now, it was raising a little bit there. But overall, you can see that Diablo Immortal in general has been trending downward. And that's simply for the fact of two things. One, people have tried the game, they've enjoyed the game, and they're leaving. And the other second thing is people have played the game, they want to play longer, but there's no new real exciting events, there's no real exciting content updates, and people are getting bored of the gameplay loop. So you have the players that are already, as with any game, played it, left, and then you come to the conclusion with a second group of players, which is just the fault of the developers and no new content. And that's what I want to talk about here. Now, one thing I want to mention as we dive into content is that the player base and all the content associated with not having enough players, like the Shadow Wars, the Immortals, and all that stuff, this could be changing a little bit here. Because of Pez Radar saying that server merging would be coming soon, it was mentioned on Reddit. I believe JT has made a video on it, and Darth has also made a video on it, so you can check out their videos if you want more in-depth information. And so that might change the landscape of things. But overall, we're looking for new content. That is what it is. We need something to, use our residents, use our legendary items, use our gems, whatever we progressed on our characters, to go ahead and do something in the game with it. Because right now, it's the same thing, and we don't even want to do it because it doesn't really progress our characters. The only people that are interested in grinding a bunch is people who want to push challenges, because if you're going to grind a bunch, you may get at the end of the day, let's say you're 20 levels above me, which is going to be an absurd amount of grinding, you will maybe get 200 extra damage. That's it. And at the point where we are getting to, you may not even have damage to go for anymore. And so you're going to start getting less useful points in the Paragon tree. So there isn't really a point to grinding for PvP viability. The only thing really is to get more combat rating or to get your set items, which if you have not gotten, that is going to be a big deal. So more combat rating is the only thing. And if that's the only thing, then people are going to be bored of the game. And I kind of already went over this a little bit here, so I'm repeating myself just a little bit. But mainly what I want to say is we need some sort of content that's outside of progressing combat rating. Whether that's going to be another type of progression type game mode, or whether that's going to be another type of content that you can actually do some other activity. I think that, for example, the Fractured Plane was actually a really, really well done event. The only problem is it's not rewarding enough for people to do outside of if you're looking to progress your character while also doing something fun. Well, you aren't going to progress your character, but you can do something fun with the Fractured Plane, or you can progress your character much, much faster and run in a circle. And so that's usually the two, dichotomy of what you want to do. So overall, there's got to be some sort of something with this new major update coming out in late September. So we have about 20 to 30 days, 3 to 4 weeks here. With this new update, I think that this new update, there's so much importance with this new update. There's a few reasons, but for one of them, we've only had mini updates besides the big class change major update. And so we don't really know what the major update is going to look like. Second thing is they delayed their update and completely went back on their word in terms of 2-week updates. So this obviously has the weight of the 2-week update on top of their normal update, and it's a major update. And people are disappointed by the fact that they aren't getting regular 2-week updates. There's a lot riding on this one, and it needs to be good. I don't think Diablo Immortal is dying as a conclusion to this video. I think that there's a lot of players leaving, yes. And I think that the game will be around for a while, yes. But I do think that if you are interested in keeping a lot of your player base, you need this major content update to be good. Whether that's going to be some sort of activity that we could do repeated that is actually exciting, whether that's a new progression type, something, we'll have to see. Let me know what your thoughts are down below, what you want to see in this game. Is there anything that would keep you around for the game if you have already left, if you're still watching? Regardless, let me know what your thoughts are down below. I'm curious to see what everyone is thinking about the game right now. I know a lot of us are in the same type, which is same gameplay, same content loop, and it's getting a little boring. The only difference between this and Diablo 3, because Diablo 3 has a relatively similar content loop where you're sitting there grinding greater rifts and Nephilim rifts and all that stuff, but you're progressing your character. So maybe if you're able to progress your character in some way by doing this outside of combat rating, maybe we have some more excitement back in the game. Let me know if that'll fix it for you, and I'll see you for the next one.